counterpick very well, especially Zeus, obviously. But will they use it in this series, or are they just going to be picking Jace and, you know, Prio picking Nidalee, stuff like that?
Well, it's an interesting question. We're getting to the point where if you can get away with not showing stuff, you probably want to try to do so. Now, important to note that when it comes to the patch, there will obviously be a different one. But given the stakes of this matchup with these two teams very realistically, for T1 a chance, for Hanwha Life the certainty of that second place, it is a big deal. Because I was joking, obviously losing to Genji is not a given. You still get the best of 5, and you can get a lot out of that. As we have a ton of mid lane bans here, kind of the expected ones, as the Rumble also taken off the board here, so that leaves the Jace open, which has been answered very consistently with the Sion. The Victor, Faker, I think we have still some questions remaining regarding his champion pool, but if he gets his hands on Victor or Azir, those kind of, even the Tilly, I think they kind of fall by the wayside. All of those champions, very dependable. For sure. It should come as no surprise. And I think the biggest issue with Victor is that if you want to counter, if you really want to go hard on something like a Kali, that does really shape your draft. Much more than I think Hanwha Life are going to be comfortable with this early on.
For sure.
Xin Zhao.
And for Doran, you know, even with the Jace available, you don't necessarily want to pick that because Zeus can just play Nidalee. Or, you know, you can play Sion, which you also saw a good game on. We're probably picking the Jhin here for Viper.
That is so interesting. So, like, Xin Zhao, I would guess?
Yes.
Right?
Xin Zhao.
Because giving over the Xin Zhao to owner feels like it's just something that you can't get away with. Alternatively, maybe like a puppy. But the Jhin prio for T1 has been very high. Understandably, I think they are the team that in the LCK plays the best around Jhin. I don't even
Viper plays a great Jhin, too.
So I think Viper's Jhin individually, I would say he goes toe-to-toe with Guma. But when it comes as a team, I feel like T1 have so much experience with the core of playing around that champion and the way they use it for side lane setups,
all right.
picks.
The draft is over. We're having a 2v2 to start off the match here, guys.
So who do you got? Who do you think is favored?
So actually, it's actually a 1v2. It's Victor versus Jhin and Xin Zhao. So
I know who I'm
going to go for the 2. Yeah. So Hanwha Life win the exhibition match. We're remaking a lot of
I wonder what champion, like, because even known like level 1 demons, I don't see it. Right? Maybe if you're in a box, if you can't run away.
Like in an arena, perhaps?
Oh, don't you remind me of the pain in my heart, Veldes.
Chronicler lost his arena. So
Not
did
just
Ox.
me.
Yeah.
Everyone out there that has great taste.
Zeka Viper, please win. 2 hearts from 2 fans. They have a pretty good chance.
We could do that as well. You and me?
Do what?
Like the fan sign?
Yeah, who are you cheering for?
I don't know. Well, I mean, in this case,
Cheer for our
I'm
spacers,
cheering.
maybe?
I like Dion's neck. I'm a little. I hope he's okay.
He was probably overplaying it just a little bit, you know.
He is a theatrical man. But I know the feeling when you like pull a muscle in your neck.
Yeah.
It's like, and it goes away in a little bit. It doesn't.
I was trying to imitate my 7-month-old son crawling or trying to crawl earlier today, and that exact thing happened to me. I'm like, yeah, well, I'm 34 almost, so I probably shouldn't be trying to do whatever he's doing on the ground.
On the floor, you're like, oh, I'm so dumb.
I'm like, he's trying to do it like this, and I'm like, oh god, my neck. I'm such an unk.
Sounds like you need to practice more and step up your game.
More crawling?
Yeah. You can do anything if you put your mind to it, if you just practice.
Yeah. I'm going to leave the crawling practice to him. As we are back in the lobby, we are restarting the draft.
So as a reminder, we had Victor picked up for Faker, and then we had the Jhin, which normally doesn't get prio'd this highly, but it is very likely that T1 would have picked it up on the rotation afterwards. We have seen a lot of teams just go for very straight up topside into bot lane drafts, but T1 clearly want to play around the Jhin, or at least that's the read that Hanwha has. The
Wait,
Jace.
it's different order! Okay, so B1 Victor was the point where everything was hacked. So apparently the Jhin was not meant to be chosen. So we have a different draft here.
So this is a lot more according to expectations, right? Because the Kalista is a champion that Vipers look exceptional on. And it also works well together with the Xin Zhao. We'll see what T1 picks up here. So Jace is open. We have good reason to believe that if it doesn't get picked here, a pick for Zeus of it is likely. And then, especially if you don't pick it here, so you're picking for lane dominance, which makes sense. This also denies the Renata. We have seen players just be like, I don't care, and still pick Renata into it. But I gotta say, when there's already a Victor on the enemy team, maybe let the Renata go. But that's not gonna get the game. If this was, you know, an RE or something of the sorts, I think it makes a lot of sense. But now, maybe it's time for something else from the light. Because you can also go for a top lane picker. Again, you can secure that Jace. As I mentioned,
or you can just play a Kali.
I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
Now that we've seen more, I think you have a better chance of getting away with it. This is a little bit less intense. And there is already a great ultimate with the Nico as well for you to pick away. Because the Akali, I think, really forces you to fully commit to the dive, whereas Sylas is a little bit more modular depending on the ult he can steal, depending on what position you can get him on for side lane. It does mean that there's an opportunity for T1 to ban out rough matchups for the Nico, but it does feel like Nico is one of those picks that's really hard to reliably shut down. So we'll see what T1 wants to go for. Us. Yeah, they do have Poppy and Xin Zhao, and Owner hasn't picked yet. Like maybe, what's next? Like a Nocturne or Wukong? I don't think either of those picks are must bans, but just try and keep T1 off that game. I think Wukong is a good ban looking at this, because trying to play to Wukong Victor and MF can be really tough later in the game. Still with the Elise ban.
Trying to target stuff that can go with the Kalista that can actually have a decent lane. Seems like they really want to lock down Prio here for Guma and Keria.
And that has been something that they have relied on historically, but they've really leaned into again recently. Now that Guma and Keria are both back in form. That bar performance from Keria last week was kind of insane. The Jace is getting picked on 4 here. Although I still wouldn't hate if they just leave counterpick for Zeus and just pick a support and then just take away the sign just to block a good blind pick for Doran.
It's a good blind pick. It's front line for already 3 squishy champions. I think it's just a good ban in general. And you can hold on to it
right now.
Yeah, I mean, even Zeus played it. He was like, no, Sion's good. I just want to play it. Even though he's kind of the guy that always wants to play the flashy stuff. We are going to have Rel bans. So no Kalista Rel, which would have been very nice,
like
hard engage.
Alistair maybe?
Yeah.
Nautilus?
Either you're blinding the Jace or like a Nidalee for Zeus, or you're just picking a solid support.
So, yeah, benefit of Leona is obviously she's a really reliable way to shut down the MF ult in case she's in a position where you can't get to her. And yeah, I love keeping counterpick for Zeus, right? This is the whole reason, and for me, the heart of this matchup is between Zeus with the counterpick and Doran on what I assume will be a very safe and stable top laner as possible.
Like Ornn or something?
Well, you can even something like the Jax, right? Like, you obviously can try and... Yorick also fulfills that same niche, right? Like, that makes sense to me as well. And Pav, I can't believe we didn't talk about him, but is obviously still very high prio, should be solid here. Does mean that Zeka gets another good ulti, a bit more limited, but it does allow you to side lane a lot more aggressively.
Jax.
And there is the Jax from Zeus. That is kind of a double up because it's both one of Doran's best picks, particularly when Doran has been on form. I think his Jax has been where he's showed some of his best team fighting. But we know that this is a skill matchup, right? This is not something that Jax wins by default. And I think it's very snowbally as well. I do think if you get the Jax head early, it's really good. But otherwise, we've seen the Yorick be able to get such a consistent early game that the Jax never really gets the skill. And I also think that games right now, I feel like they're decided a little bit earlier. But then you look at the fact that there is a Kalista, a Leona, and a Xin Zhao. And then I think that you're feeling pretty good about your early game if you are Hanwha Life.
Yeah, the early game is pretty insane. You know, I'm not sure how that bottom lane is going to go because I still think that MF Nico should at least win the lane. But in terms of like early skirmishes, it should go the way of Hanwha Life Esports. But how much prio are they going to have when they're getting poked down in mid, poked down in bot? The Jax is like kind of going even. I feel like T1 kind of net themselves a pretty good starting draft here on the blue side.
So T1 as well, right? Playing heavily for the lane prio, playing heavily for the early game and try to snowball from there. But still a decent team fighting with this comp. But I don't know if it quite compares to what Hanwha Life, particularly in the skirmishes. And I think Owner, as always, is going to have to be the glue. If he has a good game and he is able to shut down that bot lane early, could be huge.
Well, we'll see if he's got it in the tank for game number 1. As Hanwha Life come with a very aggressive draft here in this first game. Let's hop into the rift for game 1.
미니언 생성까지 30초 남았습니다.
All right. As we're getting ready for game number 1, we'll see how this goes.
No invades just yet. Not expecting anything too crazy either. Looking at the rune setups, also no big surprises. Faker did go for the grasp, which we've seen a lot when you're playing things like Victor, like Azir in melee matchups. Should be able to get a good amount of free health from that. And then we also have Zeka on his Silas, which...
You think he plays this one?
Yeah, yeah. And the calls about Zeka being even at Worlds, I think, weren't really true about him being an Akali Silas 2 trick. But he definitely was the best at those champions, and then there was a reasonable drop-off, and there were things like Azir, and then there was a large drop-off. That's no longer really true, but we have still seen him have absolutely mind-boggling performances on this champion. And for Faker, I think together with Azir has been the champion that he's been most consistent with. I think Faker has had a couple of good weeks left and right, but as a whole, I don't think this has been his best spring season. If we look back even to last year, his spring was insane. And I think during MSI, we're starting to kind of see some issues creep in, but that inconsistency, I think, has been something that T1 have kind of been dealing with, which is why they're currently in third, not in second. Early game, though, obviously the Silas not going to have the most fun time.
Yeah, definitely going to be a bit of an issue. I feel like especially control mages that can just take grasp and not care about matchups that they were already going to win into, but then also you don't have a lot of all-in pressure as the other side, as the Silas. It's not a great field to go into that, so Faker's going to have a good time. As Guma, the only person to win on this patch with MF.
Does this make you feel good or bad? I never know, because it's like, yes, you are the guy that won, but also MF is clearly just not, not having the best of time.
Think about some of the MF games that we have seen, because remember game 1 of DNF versus BK. Berserker was playing MF Gragas into Kai'Sa Alistar, and they lost the lane. So, some of them you really have to take with a grain of salt. Like, that loss is not because MF is bad on this patch, it's because DNF are struggling.
Zeka, as he often does, just playing.
He might get the kill here. Very, very close. Faker not respecting it. He's going to sidestep and flash away. Zeka potentially was going to flash in for a couple of, an auto and a skill, and then he's dead. But getting himself in that situation is not a good look for Faker.
That should not happen pre-6. Yeah. Like, Silas, one of the big advantages you have when you're playing any control mage into Akali, into Silas, is that they should fall behind naturally. Now, there are players like Zeka, like Chovy, that are able to not fall behind and go relatively even, right? Like, they're able to stay very close in terms of CS.
Yeah.
Straight up, winning the lane early and hard forcing a flash, that's a big deal. That means that Peanut now has a much better gank angle than you would otherwise be. Having Delight has a great roam timer now. If they're able to get him out of the lane, obviously needs to make sure that Vibrant gets his wave, get a truckload of experience as well. And by itself, this isn't that big of a deal, but the flash to me is the biggest, right? The fact that he had to invest that, not wanting to get like flash autoed by the Silas.
Yeah.
That's something that a team like Hanwha Life, I would expect, are going to be looking to punish.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, he's still playing Victor, who has graphs, so he can just, push waves and not really care about the Sylas. But you're absolutely right. For like the next 3-4 minutes, he will have to play safe, or he's going to be in a lot of trouble against Xinjiao and Sylas. So has to respect it. We'll see if he does.
Also means he's not able to very early on pick up something like a Catalyst, right? Which is an incredible item. That's kind of what you want to TP back to lane on, because it allows you to stay for so much longer, gives you the sustain that, particularly in a matchup like this, where Sylas is naturally going to out-sustain you, it's going to be feeling really good as in they go.
Right, going in on Aguma, who is going to take a bunch of damage. I don't know if they actually have kill pressure here, but still a good engage from the side of the Hanwha Esports bottom lane. And
Viper clearly didn't think so, because I feel like the light, was trying to get as much damage down as possible. Viper had already given up, or maybe he was looking to try and play off of resets of the wave. One thing we hadn't mentioned yet is that Guma and Carrier were kind of stomping the 2v2, which is why we see that big lead. They were very aggressive starting level 1, able to, as a result, build a nice lead. But with this 2v2 pressure from Viper and the Light, and that great jump that the Light found on top of Guma there, going to be not equalized, but minimized when it comes to that lead.
Yeah. So everything pretty good for the side of Hanwha Esports, I'd say. Mid lane, they get the flash out of Haker. Bottom lane, they equalize it up early on. And so when we get to see some of these early skirmishes over the first Drake or over the Grubs, Hanwha being on parity is always going to be a good spot for them with their insane skirmishing power early on. So liking their chances, as we do have, our top laners are still in the bottom lane, but we do have, walking up here is Doran. Chaos Storm comes down from Faker just to push the wave. And it's probably got a good back timing here. I don't think he's in any danger, especially with the sun coming down. And yeah, he'll just back away after the clearing of the wave.
Timing here is not that big a deal because there's no grubs up yet, and Hanwha aren't really in a position to contest a dragon. Does give a possible roam here for Zeka. We'll see if he actually goes for that or if he opts to use his time at the back. Doesn't look like that is going to be the case. Just going to push in instead. And now Peanut will be making his way back to his bot side, which is respawning and get some gold. It's sitting on like almost 1,000 gold there. So does finish his tunneler. And this early game is really just about the setup, and it's the explosive nature of the Hanwha early skirmishing that I'm going to be looking towards, where they are going to be the ones trying to call the shot, right? For T1, the pick potential is there as well, but I do think you want to try and play a little bit more conservative because your poke is actually pretty good. With the Nico, you can kind of fish, see if you can get a root. Faker can obviously just keep firing lasers. Whereas for Hanwha, they're a melee comp. Kalista is, not technically melee, but we all know it.
Yeah. I mean, she's going to put her face into the fights regardless. Zayo's having a pretty rough time in this one, but he's keeping up in farm, which is really the important part. He's actually ahead on farm once he clears out this wave. So yeah, he's going to get harassed down, but at the same time, he is doing a good job of just clearing out the waves and staying ahead a little bit on the gold. About 150, but still feels good as he still has his TP available. Take it back to the lane if need be. No big action just yet.
Truly a game one, where both teams are
it's
just
all
like
brewing.
Yeah, they're kind of getting a feel. They're like, what? How is
side-eyeing each
yeah,
other.
how are we feeling today? Are we gonna fight? I know we should. Peanut tries to take Dragon. Faker says no.
Yeah. Good luck. Go over there, stop that. As now we got the engaged Pantheon coming on up. Owner is here. Viper in a lot of trouble. Down he goes. First blood goes over to Guma, and now the bullet time as well. As, Carrier dies to the turret. So actually it is traded back, but the kill goes to Delight, and a wave is missed by Viper. Still a good play for T1.
Big win for T1. Able to get both of Viper sums. Get the kill over to Guma. Did he miss a cannon? Or?
No, he got the maiden.
Oh, he got the maiden, yeah. I'm like, Veldas only makes those noises generally if cannons are missed.
Yeah, it's basically the same.
So it starts off with, I think, Viper and the like kind of looking, but then Carrier has an earlier level 6 timer. That's what sets up the play. Knock up comes through, and then Owner can obviously follow up. The fact that Carrier does end up going down is a little unfortunate, but even with him going down, that's a big win for T1. More gold into Guma. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that gold onto an MF is good, but you are playing MF into a lot of champions that I don't think she deals well with, right? Like, we're going to get to a point where the damage just isn't enough to get through Jax, with Counter-Strike, to get through Zeka with a fully stacked Rod, and it will be really hard to actually get value out of it. Right now, though, I think T1 going to be feeling good about the fact that this Kalista is put on the back foot very early.
Yeah, and you can use your MF early to be a big threat for team fights, get your Victor scaled up, get your Yorick scaled up, and utilize it. And, you know, even if Guma doesn't do a huge amount of damage, we've seen Kalistas get behind and then not do too much either, depending on the fight, of course. The opposite is also true. You were pointing at T1 picking up all 3 grubs.
Of that top play, I assume. Owner just running, and the eventual trade will be a dragon picked up for Hanwha Life. Early Infernal Drake, always nice, but not that crazy. Until they can stack 2, and oh my, if you get another Chemtech Valdez.
It's gonna happen.
We've had too many.
We've had so many.
We've had way too many.
One thing I really like for Doran on the Yorick is that even when Zeus tries to all-in him, like we saw, Zeus is like, okay, give me the Jax. But even with the Jax at this point in the game, there's just not going to be a lot of volatility. And I think that Doran likes that because he's a player that sometimes gets caught out in weird spots or sometimes makes big plays happen with solo kills. I feel like this just evens out the playing field, makes it very straightforward, and you don't have any crazy moments where either side happens. And so you kind of neutralize yourself a little bit, but also you neutralize Zeus for now, as Zeus elects to drop a wave.
That's
He's got Viper coming up.
T1 is really running the map here. That's 2 full waves. Like, the top casters are going to be picked up, but the bot wave is just fully gone. Zeus is just not going to be able to pick that one up. That's a wave that they're going to be missing out on, and look at that. Now we see Doran has his Triforce finished. Zeus has not. TP is nowhere near. And if you are any it doesn't matter which champion. If you're playing into Triforce and you don't have yours and your opponent does, you don't really get to play the video game. Zeka, long chains, but the all-seeing eye of T1 owner still at the ready as
it's just Victor with grasping patterns. Like, he's just never dying.
Also, Zeka got blocked there by a grub. There's like a time...
I saw that.
I wouldn't have hit. I think it would have hit the wave instead, but it did look funny.
A little grubby getting in the way.
T1 actually building up nicely towards their early lead.
Yeah.
As there's Jonah strong zoom.
Yeah. You don't want to miss those cannons. They are a lot of money.
It's really a big problem that Jonah Strong has too many things that he's known for, because otherwise you could just call that the Jonah Strong. But you can't.
I think that's the main thing.
I don't know. His predictions are another.
Yeah.
I guess context clues might help there, but oh my god, this Nico!
Yeah. You know, you mentioned Carrier's Bard last series out, looked insane. Yes, it was against DNF, but individually he was, you know, carrying on support and looking fantastic mechanically. So it feels like he's really on his game now. A lot of our top players, I feel like, had really rough beginning of the series, or rather beginning of the seasons, for all the players. But everybody's really coming online here towards the road to MSI, which you do love to see, including Carrier. Bit of damage here on Zeus, who is Jax, but yeah, stun comes in, 1Q, and he's dead. Owner just easy dive, and now you've got a whole turret worth of plates given over to Doran. T1 getting massive leads here in this early game.
Yeah, they're kind of obliterating them. It's 13.5 minutes, and they're about to be up 3k gold. It's all lane. That's it. It's literally just laning pressure.
Yep.
Every single lane is winning, even with Zeka getting the early flash out of Faker, wasn't punished whatsoever.
Yeah.
And there are waves just being shoved into turrets. There are plates being picked up across the board.
So many
like,
plates.
look at this!
This is way too many plates. And we knew that T1, with this draft, were going to win the early game. But Hanwha Life, like, evened it out early, but then they have just fallen off a cliff since.
Hanwha Life have some of the best team fighting and skirmishing that we have in the LCK. But there are limits to how much you can kind of catch up with just being good at something when you're facing T1.
Yeah.
And it's not like their comp is bad early either. There's still Pantheon, there is the Nico and the MF, which the team fight power of those, if they can get their combo off is big. this big a gold lead this early on, almost 3.3K.
You don't really see gold leads this large, especially between two teams that should be very evenly matched.
So you will have one more, like I think you have an opportunity to fight where right now like your item spikes, one item spikes are done, so are the ones on T1. You do still have a Callista, you do still have this this Silas, but so many of the situations look like they're half health before anything has happened. As Owner hiding behind Otacon. Maybe this is the window they're looking for.
Yeah, he's just gonna flash away, good call. Peanut and Delight right there. And they had kind of snuck through vision, snuck past vision to get in there. But they get the flash out of the Pantheon. Decent amount of engaged potential taken away from T1.
Yeah, Hanwha want to fight. It's very obvious. And when the space is open, I do think that their target selection, a single target burst, is insanely big, but they do need to find an early kill.
All the one-item spikes were finished for Hanwha, so even though they're down 3,000 gold, it's really only components that are that T1's ahead on.
Well, exactly. So I think the confidence makes sense, but then I look at the health bars.
Yeah.
Or rather, the lane situation for both mid and top, and they're just not in a position to really do too much.
Zeus doesn't really get to play the game. He's just sitting here against a Yorick trying to scale and just not really having an impact for the entire early game. This is not what Zeus is comfortable with.
No, and will life really look quite muted here in the early game in T1 on their end. High marks. Everyone looking to be playing very, very well. Laning pressure is there. Cole's cashed out for Guma to really add to that gold lead. All right, Doran trying to play for this turret. Might be fighting him.
All right, he's going towards the other enemies. He's buying a lot of time. The turret goes down. Owner tries to come in and save him, but Doran gets knocked up, and there you go. First kill, but now Nico, the massive ult over the top. And Guma's right there, but the damage doesn't go in. As now we got the engage coming in on Guma. He has to cleanse. He flashes, but he's not getting out of this one. Hanwha Life making something of this team fight. As Faker on the backside, Carrier here alone as well. Triple kill for Viper, who has been totally untouched in this fight, picks up 3.
Well, there's that team fighting, fellas! And we said, yes, there's a gold lead, but the item spikes are really not that different, and I think we see it right there. What a back and forth, and that combo looked disgusting from Carrier and Guma so much. But this is the second time I've seen this today, by the way. One of the people in that combo was a Xin Zhao, who is not taking damage. So take another look. The timing window here, attempt to punish Doran for taking this turret. Zeka has the stone node, but a lot actually goes wide. Zeka doesn't need the change, which allows Owner to show up. Then Peanut goes back in for the re-engage. But I want you to look right here. So yes, Zeus goes down, but that really is all that they got. That's 2 ultimates invested. And then Viper in all of this goes unchecked. So he gets to stack up spears. And once the fight goes long, and these big ultimates don't do what you need him to do, you have Callista, Silas, and Xin Zhao. And if there are 3 champions that you don't want to have long fights and multiple rotations, it's those.
And Jax, eventually. Although, in this game, he's just kind of been sitting back.
He did his job there.
He got the kill, and then he died. So that's all he's going to do for now. But talking about champs that love to stick around for long fights and get multiple counter-strikes off, Jax is one of them.
Carrier.
He is in a lot of trouble. No ult available. He's just dead. Root comes down, and now the follow-up, the recommittal here from T1, trying to save their buddy. And now Hanwha Life are going to get another flash away from this one. Guma is probably dead here. He doesn't have flash as the bullet time. It doesn't hit, but it doesn't matter. Zeka just takes the 1v1 Hanwha. Now wiping the floor with them. They're going to take down a Rift Herald.
It's a fork right there. Either Guma walks into it or walks away from the turret. Either way, Zeka gets the kill. Losing Carrier there, it's fine. T1 though, with a desperation that I don't think is warranted, are really trying to fight. And again, this is Xin Zhao, Leona, Callista. They're gonna try and look for these jungle fights, these skirmishes. T1, you need a good setup, and this isn't it. So much invested there. Faker loses his flash. Guma and Carrier end up going down.
The insta-cancel on that bullet time.
Look, he's in slow motion.
Yep.
That's a super soldier right there.
I mean, it's just like free food for Silas. It's an MF with no cleanse, no flash, running through the jungle, trying to catch up to the team's bad decision to go for that fight, you know?
And you know the funniest part is T1 still has a gold lead, despite all that.
It was from all the laning leads, but I don't think it matters nearly as much now. The Sylas is online, the Kalista super fed, and yeah, I mean, there's a big lead in top lane,
Well, that's
but it's a Jax.
when your back is against the wall, and it all comes down to your Yorick. I think there's compositions where there's compositions where you see that and you're like, I believe. I don't think this is one of them.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at what Hanwha have to offer, and Zeus is still really far behind. But the rest of the team is able to cover for him well, and it's crucially the engage that's there. For Hanwha Life, it's so easy for them to start fights. I also think T1 are letting them, as we saw.
It felt like Hanwha were playing into T1's hands early on, and now T1 are playing into Hanwha's hands.
Yep.
Here in the mid game. They're like, you want to take fights? We're going to blast cone into you. It's like very strange angles. I think it's just like trying to very quickly respond to Hanwha Life's engages, but that's not really the way you want to play. You want to have set up engages where you have all your ults combined together. You want to be the ones that's setting them up rather than desperately scrambling into position against all of these skirmish-heavy champions on the side of Hanwha. As we have Riftmaker already finished here for Zeka. 2 items.
Yeah.
Sylas is pretty giga-huge at the moment. Not even that far ahead of Faker, but he's feeling pretty good. Already fully stacked that rod. Got it very early, so only able to hit level 15. But ahead 2 levels because of that on Faker, who hasn't finished his.
Faker, though, going to get more relative value.
True.
Because he gets a later level. Right now, I think he just preferred to not be behind Zeka, because you can see he needs to play it very respectful. Wants to get a grasp, but I don't think he's going to get one. And the lead that Guma had over Viper is now all but evaporated. And I want to highlight something. I think that our perception of Kalista, or Kalista as a late game AD, or as an early game AD carry, I don't think it's true anymore. I feel like with the build that she's going for, right, where you get with Terminus and Jaxos, you actually get so tanky that it becomes more about the length of a fight and the skill of the player, as opposed to you need to win early and post 2 items. It's like kind of whatever. Right, I feel like Kalista really used to be, you need to stomp lane, and then once lane is stomped, you have value, and otherwise you kind of taper off. I just don't really see it that way anymore, particularly when you itemize well into the damage that thus far T1 haven't really been able to find, as Homebreaker done 2 item spikes are there for T1. And this Drake fight is a possible soul. We haven't even talked about the mountain as the TP comes in from Zeka as well.
All right, they really want to fight for this one, but the Drake is already gone. And, okay, it's gone.
That was anticlimactic.
We're, like, building up to this, and then T1 just, yeah.
They get mid-turret, which is nice, but Soul Point,
There's a Rift Herald in bot lane.
have.
Did you see Peanut summon it in the bottom river?
It is there.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be there for a lot longer.
Yeah, probably not.
Says, take it and drive mid, maybe?
Okay,
Okay. Oh, you heard me.
You're on to something.
Well, there are like
I
5
wouldn't
T1
do that.
players, so maybe just leave. Yeah, he's just leaving. That's better. Unless...
He's rotating.
Yeah. Whoop.
Back to bot lane for you.
Yeah, back to the wave.
Turret in top lane.
That's all Zeus, by the way. He drew attention.
Yeah. He drove attention.
So, still...
Get it? Because he drove
Because he drove the... Yeah,
yeah.
that was mine.
But you said he drew.
Yeah, I know. But I felt it was implied because of the driving.
He drove viewership to the...
What's T1 Hanwha? I don't think they need help with the viewership, Valdez.
Probably not.
I think they're fine when it comes to that.
Still a very even game.
It is.
I think that Hanwha's comp actually will very much enjoy the Ocean Soul.
Yeah, no, that's because they already will have so much tankiness. And I think eventually we're going to obviously reach a point where Guma and Faker are going to have a pretty decent amount of being able to... But like even then, even with Deathcap and Void Staff, if they get Ocean Soul and like Sylas ever gets to hit anyone...
Yeah.
Good luck.
It's an issue.
He's not dying easily.
Some context for the graphic we just showed. Faker is on 9 stacks of his rod, so he's about to hit level 16. I think we're not having a lot of action now. We wanted to show something, but that's really the situation.
Flash.
Yeah, I think he just doesn't do it now. There's just way too much rotation over here. 4 people
Good call.
kind of angling down there, so it's still a win for Hanwha to take him down. There's no objective up here except the Otacon, but they're not quick enough to start that one up.
Don't want to risk it. Zeus still has his TP available. Good call by Doran. I think he was contemplating it, but he would have flashed into the light. So there's just no world where he ever gets out. So oversteps his bounds. And I'm pretty sure that kill also went to Zeus. And I feel like we're slowly starting to feel the tilt of that matchup. As now Zeus is going for a Zhonya's next, which is going to give him a lot of offensive power. Allows him to play way more aggressive. And yeah.
And by tilt, you mean it's tilting towards the Jax
Yes.
as he gets more fed.
I'm not saying...
Not that one of the players is getting
I'm not
tilted.
saying that either player is tilted.
I just think our gamers might, misinterpret that.
Well, it's
They hear the word tilt and they're like, oh, who's tilted?
No, I would say it's skew, but I feel like tilt is more accessible.
Yeah.
Who says it's skew?
Lawyers.
Ugh, this guy's
The worst. Yeah. Well, it's definitely one of these chess matches, as we had the one big fight in bot,
This
but
is
after
a-
that it's been sitting back.
This
weak.
is a thinking's man's LCK. This is the kind of LCK game you can be really smug about. It's like, oh yeah, no, my league
I understand.
plays-
You wouldn't get it.
deeper. We are already planning 5 waves ahead. You know, none of this is not planned, which is why nothing's happening. I was told that adding objectives would make this better, Feldes.
Yeah, we added grubs, and then we took the grubs away. We made them whatever they are now. That's not the only
They're
reason.
fine. Oh, possible collapse. I say, as no collapse comes
He
through.
did hit him with the laser.
He did. A little Leandri's burn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit of damage.
Yeah. So is it just one team fight for Ocean Soul, and then whoever wins that fight gets Baron, and the game is over? Is that?
Yeah, and Otacon. Don't
Oh.
forget.
So who do we like more? Who you looking to? I'm seeing a Terminus for Viper. I'm seeing 2 stopwatches. Well, arm guards, but you know.
I just feel like the setup for the fight is everything. If Hanwha make it scrappy, they're going to win like 99 out of 100 times.
I think T1 don't have control of the choke points and force Hanwha to walk through one.
Yeah.
It'll be really hard for them to actually get full value out of this combo. And again, if they had the 4K gold lead that they had, by the way, that they worked very hard for it to get, like, Hanwha can't just walk up to this dragon and set up shop. But here we are.
They're walking up to the dragon and setting up shop because the gold is even, Chronicler. A good point made. And I just...
Oh, did they just get it?
I don't know. I mean, they're starting it, but they're apprehensive about it. Owner is here.
Flanking Yorick.
We've seen this work for other teams. Not sure about in this scenario, as the Maiden is bye-bye. It's another 50 gold over to Zeus.
Zeka doesn't have an ultimate yet. I think he's going to be looking for carry-outs if he can find it.
Doran's just pushing.
Or Fakers.
Wants to go for
Delight!
the engage. Is Faker just going to go golden, and now Delight maybe in a bit of an issue as everybody gets knocked up by the Nico, but the counter Nico comes in. They get onto that back line as Carrier the first to go down. Guma's already out of the fight, as will go down Owner, and it's just a disaster. T1, they set it up, and Homalife knock it down as they do not get the soul, but they get a massive team fight, and now they're going to get the top objectives.
That's a world champion right there. Zeka with the Silas. I thought that Nico Engage had done it. They get the dragon, deny the ocean, and then carry a flash multi-man ult. And it's still not enough. As we take another look at this fight, the light goes in, but this at first looks a little disjointed. And then watch this. Boom. Immediately, Faker not in the position to do any damage. Guma taken out of the fight. And then Doran, he's just a Yorick, man.
Yeah.
He's just a Yorick by himself. Can't get through. That's Nash. And yes, the soul wasn't given. I don't think Homalife are going to be feeling too bad about it.
I think they're okay with it. They get Nash, they'll probably get Otacon if they want to prioritize that, but maybe they just want to extend their gold lead instead and not try to throw on that objective. It was an interesting fight because both AD carries were pushed out pretty early on, but again, just the skirmish power of the Silas, the Xinjiao, the Jax, like those were all unchecked. So even though they went super deep to kill Viper, like they just have so many other threats. And
I can't believe Viper hasn't died yet. I swear I've seen him die like he's gone so deep. That feels wrong, right? Or sorry, Delight.
Like he's died twice.
No, Delight.
Yeah. That makes more sense. And now Zeus doesn't really... I mean, Doran's going to keep going on this, but it's getting close. You can feel like Zeus is getting close to the point where he's just going to begin to take over the side lane. New York's still going to be strong, but...
We're going to TP back to the wave. I mean, I don't think he should, because you want to really keep it available in case T1 find a collapse towards top side.
They just got his Zonias. Otacon
We
picked up
forgot
here.
about Otacon.
I didn't.
Well, I did. Kind of just assumed that that was already gone.
It's just they use this Baron to take Otacon, and now they still have 1:30 left on the Baron, so they can just push top and mid carefully.
It is not a game-breaking Baron, though, nor is the team fight. I think T1 from this position obviously are going to be in a really rough spot. And the main issue for me is that it feels like Faker has been stuck at these items for like, what, 10 minutes now? I swear, he got his Rod of Ages and his Leandri's really fast.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, I think for them to actually chew through all these health bars on Hanwha Life, because these are some beefy targets. Literally no one is squishy. Like, there's no easy damage that you can find.
Yeah.
I think you really need Void Stuff. You really need Death Cap. You need some actual damage to chew through these people. Guma, for example, because of the Executioner.
Or not an MF.
Will help a little. Well, that also obviously is part of the problem. Yeah, and then Owner tried his best in the early game, 100% kill participation, but at this point, you are Pantheon.
All right, they're going to try for something here, but Carrier doesn't find the angle, and Fate's Call comes through. It's kind of a broken engage from T1, and there's still 30 seconds of Baron. So they have this wave. They take down the turret anyway, and that's some tools taken away from the T1 side. Zeus not yet in a position where he can threaten a kill. In fact, he is getting pushed off of the wave, so not really getting value out of the side push of the Jax. And we're following Guma here. Looks like he got a Dirk, but nothing big at this point.
Jack Show's approaching. The gold lead for Zaka just keeps getting bigger. Peanut, he's just sacrificing his camp. And I'm happy to see awake Peanut again. I feel like he was gone for a decent amount of time. He's playing.
He was on vacation.
Yeah.
He was hanging out.
Hanwha Live does do that. But, you know, that's one of those things that you can say, and either it can be cope if they then lock in the next series, or they just lose and you're like, okay, yeah, no, there's an issue.
Everything we said on the Pog stage is coming true.
Yep.
If Hanwha Life lock in, if Peanut's on his game, they should take it. Peanut is running into 4 people, and the ult here from Carrier only hits the Xinjiao, who does not care. Peanut doesn't care, even if he dies. As now they get to the back line, and Kuma's ult does absolutely nothing, just dies immediately. Baker's got a good angle under the turret, but he doesn't have any teammates as they're dying in the turret. They're just tanking the turret, and everybody seems to have his on as everybody's going golden, and Baker just doesn't do any damage. He is dead. Hanwha Life stomp the fight, and maybe they take the game right here.
That's a red side win as well.
처치했습니다.
It's Hanwha Life. Yes, they fell behind. But those team fights, man, they are just something else. The early skirmishes, we saw the signs. And Hanwha will be able to end this game. Carrier's trying to clear the wave as best as he can, but nah, there's just no chance.
Not having enough pull. They turn and take the kill first, and then they will kill the enemy Nexus. Hanwha Life, very nicely played game. They got down 4,000 gold in the laning phase, and it still didn't matter because they were just the better team fighting team with a better team fighting comp